All right, Natalie. For every new guest on the show, we induct them, even though we're inducting you with the last 10 minutes of the episode, by asking for you to tell a worst date story. So a nightmare date, preferably a first date, not necessarily.
Can I say an interview story that this guy tried to turn into a date? Because that was pretty horrifying. Actually,
if that's your worst thing you can think of, I'll take it.
It was pretty bad, which is I don't know if I should say such dark things.
No, you should have heard Chrissy Mayer's episode.
You should have heard Jimmy Martinez.
Oh, that too.
He killed someone.
No,
anyway,
no, but a murder wasn't.
He
was there.
I mean, things happen. I don't know.
Yeah. Did you kill this person?
No, but I should.
So we're fine. We're fine.
Yeah. So it was an interview. Of course, Craigslist was involved, which was probably
same thing with Chrissy Mayer.
It seemed normal up until a certain
point.
No.
What was the interview for?
It was for a personal assistant position for a traveling CEO. So the idea was that you get to travel with this CEO and do his calendar and whatever, and so you get to travel to different places, and any young girl who doesn't have anything holding her I don't know. Whatever.
Were those words?
That was his subtle angle to take?
No, that was my perception of life at the time.
That's not the Craigslist
I wanted to
ad.
do it. Okay. I thought it would be a cool job. I was in my early 20s, and yeah, so I found this guy on Craigslist, and there was an interview process, right? So we had to meet, I think 2 or 3 times.
In an office, though?
No.
Okay.
So they were at restaurants and stuff. So it was super and I was like, okay, well, this is how it's going to be because we're going to be traveling and whatever. This makes sense, right? Maybe not. Okay. Don't judge me. So then, but it seemed legit. And then he even had someone call me over the phone, which I dubbed to be a therapist, which I asked him, you had a shrink, question me, ask me all these weird mathematical questions. It was another interview, to test me about something. So it seemed very legit. And I think it was, but at a certain point, I guess he decided that it wasn't going to work out because he was attracted to me. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't there for that. And so the third interview, which is already starting to feel more like a date than an interview at this point. We're at a restaurant again.
Are you attracted to him at all?
No,
okay.
He's a short, gross, balding, older guy who not that those things
Sounds
aren't
hot to me.
attractive. But to me, I was not my type. I'm here for an interview. I'm here for a job, period. So it's the last interview, whatever. It's kind of turning into a date. And he's like, why don't you come up to my place so I can show you the stuff that I'm working on, which if I was a personal assistant, I would have to be in and out of his place for dry cleaning, prescriptions. I've been an executive assistant before, and I've had to go in and out of people's apartments. So I thought it was normal. So we go up to the guy's place, and he's dimming the lights. He's making me a drink, and I'm like, where's the stuff you were going to show me? Yeah. Where's the stuff that you were going to show me? Yeah. So then eventually he tries to make a move. And I get all freaked out and try to explain to him that I was here for an interview, and then he just goes off on me. He gets really upset and really angry and starts screaming at me about how I like him and I want it and all this stuff. And so I start crying hysterically.
Okay.
And he's still screaming at me about how I want him and how I like him. And I'm well, part of me crying hysterically is I thought this was an interview. But yeah, the worst part was I tried to leave and he didn't let me. He stood in front of the door and locked it.
Jerked off.
And just kept screaming at me.
CK.
And I had no way out of the apartment. And I was like, oh my God, I'm being held hostage for a big
wow.
Craigslist.
Terrifying.
I mean, luckily, yeah. So I regret to this day, not calling the police, which I totally should have. But I was freaking out. I went into the bathroom at a certain point. I was crying. I didn't know what to do. I was looking for someone to call, but it wasn't the police. Because I guess I'm more scared of calling the police because it's more drama and they take your information. I don't want this. I just want to get out of there. I don't want to be there any longer. I don't want to do. So
how long ago was this?
Years ago. This was years ago when I obviously wasn't making enough money and was looking for something that was, but yeah, eventually I had to kind of talk him down. Yeah, you're right. I do like you. I don't know why I was crying to get out of the apartment. And then he offered to pay for my cab. I guess I really convinced him that everything was fine. But he even made a comment to the doorman on the way out. Oh my God, she almost ran away and called the police on me. And I was like, no. And then I got in the cab and I was like, oh my God, this guy tried to lock me in his apartment.
Wow.
And how long did you guys date for?
We got married. No, I'm kidding.